The quiet man in work boots they kept dismissing just revealed he owns the entire banking chain. Today, he's about to show them what happens when you judge a king by his clothes. Isaiah Martinez stepped through the glass doors of Premier Financial Group's flagship branch in downtown Chicago at exactly 9:47 a.m. on a gray Tuesday morning. His steel-toed work boots squeaked against the polished marble floor. His navy blue coveralls bore the faded logo of Martinez Construction, a company that hadn't existed for 15 years, not since he'd sold it to build his empire. But nobody in this branch knew that story. He carried a worn leather briefcase, the kind construction foremen use for permits and invoices. Inside wasn't paperwork for a building site. Inside were documents that could change lives or end careers. The main floor buzzed with the usual morning energy. Tellers processed deposits, loan officers shuffled papers, and in the corner VIP lounge behind frosted glass, the bank's elite clients sipped complimentary coffee while discussing portfolios worth millions. Isaiah approached the reception desk where Emma Sullivan, a 28-year-old blonde in a crisp white blouse, looked up with the practiced smile of someone trained to assess worth in 3 seconds. "Good morning," Isaiah said, his voice calm and measured. "I'd like to speak with someone about opening a business account." Emma's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Her eyes traveled from his work boots to his weathered hands to the logo on his chest. "Certainly," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I'm hoping someone has a few minutes." Emma glanced at her computer screen, then at the clock on the wall. "Our business account specialists are quite busy today. Perhaps you could come back this afternoon. Or better yet, you might try our community branch on 5th Street. They handle smaller accounts." The word smaller hung in the air like a challenge. Isaiah nodded slowly. "I understand you're busy, but I think you'll want to make time for this." Something in his tone made Emma pause. There was no pleading, no desperation, just certainty. "What kind of business are you looking to open an account for?" "Real estate development, multiple properties. I'm looking to deposit about $12 million to start." Emma's fingers froze over her keyboard. $12 million? From a man in coveralls? I'll need to verify that you have those funds available," she said, her voice now carrying a note of suspicion. "Of course, that's exactly what you should do." But before Emma could respond, a voice cut through the air like a blade. "Hey, construction guy!" Everyone turned. Logan Chen, a 31-year-old investment advisor in a $1,000 suit, stood near the coffee station with a smirk that broadcast his superiority to everyone within 50 feet. "The service entrance is around back," Logan called out, loud enough for half the branch to hear. "Unless you're here to fix something that's actually broken." A few clients looked up from their phones. 2 tellers exchanged glances. The branch manager, Trevor White, emerged from his office to see what the commotion was about. Isaiah didn't move, didn't react. He simply turned his head toward Logan and said, "I'm here to open an account." Logan laughed, not a chuckle, but a full laugh that echoed off the marble walls. $12 million, right? I heard that from here. Let me guess, you hit the lottery?" "Something like that," Isaiah replied. Trevor White, sensing potential trouble, approached the reception desk. At 45, he'd managed this branch for 8 years and prided himself on maintaining what he called appropriate standards. "Is there a problem here?" Trevor asked, though his tone suggested the problem was obvious. Emma looked between Isaiah and her manager. "This gentleman claims he wants to open a business account with $12 million deposit." Trevor's eyebrows raised. Then he looked at Isaiah, really looked at him. The work boots, the coveralls, the calloused hands. "Sir, I think there might be some confusion," Trevor said, his voice taking on the patronizing tone of someone explaining simple concepts to a child. "Business accounts of that magnitude require extensive documentation, credit checks, and verification of funds. It's not something we handle at the walk-in level."
I understand, Isaiah said. I have documentation. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. But before he could hand it over, Logan Chen stepped closer. This is entertaining, Logan said, pulling out his phone. Mind if I record this? My clients love these kinds of stories. Isaiah's eyes met Logan's. Put the phone away. Or what? You'll build me a shed? The branch had gone quiet now. Even customers in line were watching, some with amusement, others with growing discomfort. Trevor held up a hand. Gentlemen, let's keep this professional. He turned to Isaiah. Sir, I'm going to need to see valid identification and preliminary documentation before we can even begin this conversation. Isaiah reached into his wallet and handed over his driver's license. Trevor glanced at it, then did a double take. Isaiah Martinez, Trevor read out loud. And you're claiming to have $12 million to deposit? I'm not claiming anything, Isaiah said quietly. I'm stating a fact. Emma leaned over to look at the ID. Maybe we should call the fraud department, she whispered, not as quietly as she thought. Logan heard it and grinned. Fraud department? All this keeps getting better. But Isaiah didn't react to the word fraud. Instead, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Maria, he said when someone answered. We're proceeding with Protocol 7. Yes, the full audit. Start with this branch. He hung up and looked at Trevor. You have 15 minutes to verify my account information before my team arrives. Trevor's confidence wavered slightly. Your team? Financial auditors. They're very thorough. Logan snorted. Auditors? Dude, what construction company has auditors? Isaiah turned to face Logan fully for the first time. The kind that builds the buildings you work in. Something in his tone made Logan's smirk falter. Emma cleared her throat. Mr. Martinez, I'm going to need additional verification beyond your driver's license. Do you have business cards, tax documents, bank statements from your current institution? I do, Isaiah said. But first, I'd like to speak with your branch president. Trevor straightened. I am the branch manager. I handle all, not the manager, the president. This is a Premier Financial Group branch, correct? I'd like to speak with whoever represents Premier's interests at the executive level. Trevor looked confused. Sir, that would be regional management, and they don't typically... Isaiah's phone rang. He answered it. Yes, Maria. Confirmed? All of it? Good. Send it over. He hung up and looked at Trevor. You've got 10 minutes now. Logan was getting frustrated. Look, whatever game this is, it's getting old. You want to pretend you're some big shot? Fine. But stop wasting everyone's time. Isaiah pulled a business card from his wallet and handed it to Logan. Logan read it aloud. Isaiah Martinez, CEO, Apex Holdings Group. He looked up, confused. What's Apex Holdings? Trevor leaned over to look at the card. His face went pale. Emma noticed Trevor's reaction. What is it? Trevor didn't answer immediately. He was thinking, trying to remember something from a corporate memo he'd skimmed months ago. Emma, pull up the corporate ownership files. Search for Apex Holdings. Emma's fingers flew over her keyboard. Her screen populated with information, and her face went white. Oh my God, she whispered. Logan looked between them. What? What is it? Emma's voice came out as barely more than a whisper. Apex Holdings Group owns 68% of Premier Financial Group. The branch went dead silent. Logan looked at the business card again, then at Isaiah, then back to the card. Trevor felt his knees go weak. Mr. Martinez, we had no way of knowing. Knowing what? Isaiah interrupted. That someone in work clothes might have money? That a man with calloused hands might own buildings instead of just constructing them? Emma Sullivan stared at her computer screen, scrolling through corporate documents that confirmed everything Isaiah was saying. The acquisition happened 18 months ago. Apex Holdings Group purchased controlling interest in Premier Financial Group for $2.3 billion. Logan slumped into the nearest chair. You're serious? You actually own this bank? I own part of this bank, Isaiah corrected, but I own enough to make decisions about how it operates, and right now, I'm not impressed with what I'm seeing. Trevor's mind raced. He thought about every corporate diversity training he'd attended, every memo about inclusive banking practices, every policy designed to prevent exactly what just happened. Sir, I apologize for any misunderstanding. If you'd like to come to my office, we can— No misunderstanding, Isaiah said firmly. You understood perfectly. You saw work boots and coveralls and decided I didn't belong in your VIP lounge. Logan here thought I was so beneath notice that he could mock me loud enough for your customers to hear. Emma suggested I try your community branch for smaller accounts.
Each word hit like a physical blow. You all made exactly the assumptions you were trained not to make. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Isaiah's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and nodded. My audit team just arrived. They're in the parking lot reviewing the financial performance of this branch over the past 18 months. Want to know what they found? Nobody answered, but everybody wanted to know. This branch ranks dead last in the premier network for customer retention among clients with household incomes below $75,000. You're 43% below network average for new account acquisition in minority communities. And you have the highest rate of account verification delays for customers whose appearance doesn't match their financial profile. Trevor felt the floor dropping out from under him. We follow all corporate guidelines for— You follow the letter of policy while violating its spirit, Isaiah said. You've created a culture where people like me, successful people who don't look like your typical millionaire, get treated like potential threats instead of valued customers. Logan finally found his voice. Look, I was just joking around. I didn't mean anything by it. Isaiah turned his full attention to Logan. You didn't mean anything by calling me construction guy? By telling me to use the service entrance? By suggesting you'd record me for your client's entertainment? Logan's face flushed red. It was just what? Isaiah pressed. Casual humiliation? Standard procedure for people who dress differently than you? Emma cleared her throat nervously. Mr. Martinez, what happens now? Isaiah looked around the branch. Other employees had stopped what they were doing and were watching from a distance. Customers sat in chairs, some texting, others openly staring. Now, Isaiah said, we have a conversation about what this bank is supposed to represent. He walked to the center of the main floor where his voice would carry to everyone. My name is Isaiah Martinez. I own controlling interest in Premier Financial Group. I came here today to see how this branch treats customers who don't fit your typical demographic profile. Murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd. What I found, Isaiah continued, is a culture that judges worth by appearance, that assumes poverty from work clothes, and that treats service industry professionals as second-class citizens. An older black woman near the teller line spoke up. Sir, they did the same thing to me last month. Made me wait 2 hours to cash a check because they said I didn't look like I had money in that account. Isaiah nodded toward her. What's your name, ma'am? Keisha Daniels. Mrs. Daniels, I apologize on behalf of this institution. That should never have happened. A young Latino man by the ATM raised his hand. They questioned my deposit last week, asked if the money was legitimately earned. Your name? Anthony Patel. More voices joined in. A pattern emerged of subtle discrimination, of assumptions based on appearance, of policies applied differently depending on how someone looked or talked. Trevor watched his branch's reputation crumble in real time. Mr. Martinez, if we could discuss this privately— No, Isaiah said firmly. Privacy is how problems like this survive. Sunlight is how they get solved. He turned to address the full branch again. Everyone here,
Employees and customers is about to witness something that doesn't happen often in corporate America. You're going to see immediate accountability. Isaiah pulled out his phone and dialed. Maria, start the termination protocols. Yes, all 3 of them. No, effective immediately. Have HR prepare the documentation. He ended the call and looked at Trevor, Emma, and Logan. You're all terminated, effective immediately. The branch erupted. Gasps, whispers, a few scattered claps from customers who had been mistreated. Logan jumped up. You can't fire me. I have clients. I have a contract. Your contract includes a clause about maintaining professional standards and representing the bank's values, Isaiah replied calmly. You violated both. Emma was crying now. I have student loans. I need this job. You should have thought about that before suggesting I try the community branch, Isaiah said. Not unkindly, but without compromise. Actions have consequences. Trevor tried one last desperate play. Mr. Martinez, I've managed this branch for 8 years. Your performance reviews show you've created exactly the culture I witnessed today. High profits, low integrity. That's not the kind of manager Premier Financial Group needs. Isaiah looked around the branch one more time. The rest of you, he said to the remaining employees, have a choice. You can continue working the way you've been working, and you'll be looking for new jobs within 90 days. Or you can help me build the kind of bank that serves everyone with dignity and respect. He walked back to the reception desk and picked up his briefcase. I'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. to begin the transition. We're going to retrain every employee, review every policy, and rebuild this branch's culture from the ground up. As he turned to leave, Mrs. Daniels called out, Mr. Martinez? He stopped and turned back. Thank you, she said simply. Isaiah nodded. Thank you for speaking up. That took courage. He walked toward the door, his work boots clicking against the marble floor one last time. But as he reached the exit, he paused and turned back to address the entire branch. One more thing, he said. I want everyone here to remember today, not because of what happened to 3 employees, but because of what happens next. This branch is going to become a model for how financial institutions should treat every customer, regardless of what they look like or what they wear. He looked directly at the remaining employees. You have the opportunity to be part of something better. Don't waste it. And with that, Isaiah Martinez walked out of the branch he owned, leaving behind a room of people who would never again judge someone by their work boots. The next morning, Isaiah Martinez returned to the Premier Financial Group branch at exactly 9 a.m. This time, he wore a tailored charcoal suit, Italian leather shoes, and carried a briefcase that screamed executive authority. The difference in how people looked at him was immediate and telling. The remaining staff gathered in the main lobby, their faces a mix of anxiety, curiosity, and hope. Word had spread overnight about what happened. Local news had picked up the story. Social media was buzzing with videos taken by customers who witnessed the firings. Isaiah stood where he had stood the day before, but the energy was completely different. Good morning, he said, his voice carrying easily through the space. For those who weren't here yesterday, I'm Isaiah Martinez, majority owner of Premier Financial Group. I came here yesterday to see how this branch treats customers who don't fit your typical demographic profile. Murmurs of acknowledgement rippled through the group. What I found, Isaiah continued, is a culture that judges worth by appearance, that assumes poverty from work clothes, and that treats service industry professionals as second-class citizens. An older black woman near the teller line spoke up, Sir, they did the same thing to me last month. Made me wait 2 hours to cash a check because they said I didn't look like I had money in that account. Isaiah nodded toward her. What's your name, ma'am? Keisha Daniels. Mrs. Daniels, I apologize on behalf of this institution. That should never have happened. a young Latino man by the ATM, raised his hand. "They questioned my deposit last week, asked if the money was legitimately earned." "Your name?" "Anthony Patel." More voices joined in. A pattern emerged of subtle discrimination, of assumptions based on appearance, of policies applied differently depending on how someone looked or talked. Trevor watched his branch's reputation crumble in real time. "Mr. Martinez, if we could discuss this privately." "No," Isaiah said firmly. "Privacy is how problems like this survive. Sunlight is how they get solved." He turned to address the full branch again. "Everyone here, employees and customers, is about to witness something that doesn't happen often in corporate America. You're going to see immediate accountability." Isaiah pulled out his phone and dialed. "Maria, start the termination protocols. Yes, all 3 of them. No, effective immediately. Have HR prepare the documentation." He ended the call and looked at Trevor, Emma, and Logan. "You're all terminated, effective immediately." The branch erupted. Gasps, whispers, a few scattered claps from customers who had been mistreated. Logan jumped up. "You can't fire me! I have clients! I have a contract!" "Your contract includes a clause about maintaining professional standards and representing the bank's values," Isaiah replied calmly. "You violated both." Emma was crying now. "I have student loans. I need this job." "You should have thought about that before suggesting I try the community branch," Isaiah said, not unkindly, but without compromise. Actions have consequences. Trevor tried one last desperate play. "Mr. Martinez, I've managed this branch for 8 years. My performance reviews..."
Maria added, "We're also installing tablets at every station where customers can rate their service experience in real time. Anonymous feedback that goes directly to corporate." Isaiah pulled out his phone and showed the screen to the gathered staff. "This is the premier financial app. As of this morning, it includes a report discrimination button. Any customer can file a complaint instantly, and it gets investigated within 24 hours. The weight of accountability was settling over the room. "Now," Isaiah continued, "I want to address something important. Change is hard. Some of you might think these new standards are too strict, or that we're being too sensitive to customer complaints." He paused, looking at each face. "To those people, I say this: the door is open. If you can't treat every customer with dignity and respect, this isn't the right job for you. We'll provide excellent references and severance packages, but we won't compromise on basic human decency." A teller named Maya Brooks raised her hand. "What about customers who are genuinely suspicious, people who might actually be committing fraud?" "Excellent question," Isaiah replied. "We'll have enhanced training on identifying actual red flags versus assumed red flags. Real suspicious activity looks very different from, 'This person doesn't look like they have money.'" Maria stepped forward again. "We're bringing in former FBI financial crimes investigators to train staff on legitimate fraud detection. You'll learn to spot real threats without profiling people based on appearance." Isaiah checked his watch. "We have a lot of work ahead of us, but I want you all to understand something. This isn't punishment for what happened yesterday. This is an opportunity to be part of something better." He walked toward the teller line and stopped at each station. "This branch is going to become a model for the entire Premier network. Other branches will send their managers here to learn how banking should be done. You'll be teaching the future of financial services." The energy in the room was shifting from anxiety to excitement. As Isaiah prepared to leave, he turned for one final message. "Yesterday, I walked in here wearing work boots and was treated like a problem to be solved. Tomorrow, when someone else walks in wearing work boots,
They'll be treated like a valued customer with a story worth hearing. He paused at the door. That's the difference between a bank that serves the community and a community that happens to have a bank in it. We're choosing to be the first. As Isaiah left the branch for the second time in 2 days, the remaining staff looked around at each other with a new understanding. They weren't just keeping their jobs. They were becoming part of a revolution. 6 months later, Isaiah Martinez stood in the same branch, but everything had changed. The marble floors were the same, but they now reflected light from displays showcasing local business success stories, customers who had received their first business loans from this branch. The former VIP lounge had been transformed into the Community Financial Center, where customers received free financial literacy training every Tuesday and Thursday evening. Mrs. Keisha Daniels occupied a desk near the front, her nameplate reading Community Liaison. She was helping a young entrepreneur understand small business lending options. The branch that had once ranked last in the Premier Network for minority customer retention now ranked first. Not just for retention, for everything: customer satisfaction, new account growth, and community engagement. But the real measure of success wasn't in the numbers. It was in the moments. Like when Anthony Patel, the young man who had been questioned about his legitimate earnings, returned to open his second business account after his startup succeeded. Like when 3 other Premier branches requested to implement the same community-focused model. Like when Mrs. Keisha Daniels recruited her nephew, a recent college graduate who had been job hunting for months, and he was hired as a loan officer specifically because of his ability to connect with customers from all backgrounds. Isaiah stood in the center of the main floor, watching his employees work. They moved with confidence and genuine care. They listened more than they talked. They asked questions to understand, not to interrogate. Maria Santos approached with a tablet showing the latest quarterly results. "The numbers speak for themselves," she said, "but more importantly, the complaints speak for themselves too." Isaiah looked at the screen. 0 discrimination complaints in 6 months. 0. "It's working," Maria continued. "Corporate wants to roll out the model system-wide." Isaiah nodded, but his attention was drawn to the front door. An elderly Hispanic man in paint-splattered work clothes was entering, looking uncertain and slightly intimidated by the marble and glass surroundings. Isaiah watched as Chloe Johnson, the young teller who asked about failing retraining, immediately approached the man with a warm smile. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you today?" The man hesitated. I need to open an account for my painting business, but I don't have much money to start with." "That's perfectly fine," Chloe replied without hesitation. "We have several business account options designed specifically for new entrepreneurs. Would you like to sit down and discuss what might work best for your situation?" Isaiah felt something that had become familiar over the past 6 months. Pride, not in his wealth or his power, but in the culture they had built together. As he prepared to leave, his monthly branch visits were routine now. He paused at Mrs. Keisha Daniels' desk. "How are we doing, Keisha?" She looked up with a smile that lit up her entire face. "We're doing exactly what a bank should do, Mr. Martinez. We're helping people build their dreams instead of questioning whether they deserve them." Isaiah nodded. "Keep up the excellent work." As he walked toward the door, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. 23 years ago, he had laid concrete foundations for other people's buildings. 15 years ago, he sold his construction company and invested in his first real estate development. 18 months ago, he had purchased controlling interest in Premier Financial Group. 6 months ago, he had fired 3 employees for discrimination. Today, he ran a bank that proved something he had always believed. When you treat people with dignity and respect, everyone wins.
At the door, Isaiah paused and turned back one final time. The elderly Hispanic painter was now sitting comfortably in the community area, reviewing account options with Chloe. Mrs. Keisha Daniels was helping a young mother understand mortgage pre-qualification. A teenage boy was using one of the financial literacy tablets to learn about saving for college. This was what success looked like. Not the marble floors or the glass walls or the impressive quarterly reports. Success looked like people who had been dismissed and overlooked finally being seen, heard, and valued. Isaiah Martinez walked out of his branch, not the branch he owned, but the branch he had helped create, wearing the same work boots he had worn that first day 6 months ago. Because now, work boots were welcome. Now everyone was welcome. And that made all the difference. If you've ever been judged by your appearance, dismissed because of how you dress, or treated like you don't belong somewhere you have every right to be, this story is for you. Change doesn't always come from protests or hashtags or viral videos. Sometimes it comes from one person with the courage to stand up and say, "This ends now." Sometimes it comes from someone with power choosing to use that power to lift others up instead of keeping them out. And sometimes it comes from a quiet man in work boots who refuses to let discrimination hide behind policy and procedure. Would you have the courage to do what Isaiah did? Would you have walked into that bank wearing work clothes, knowing you'd be judged? Would you have stood your ground when they tried to make you feel small? Would you have fired everyone responsible, even if it meant starting over? The next time you see someone being treated unfairly because of how they look or where they come from, remember this story. Remember that your voice matters. Remember that silence protects the system, but speaking up changes it. And remember that sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one with the power to change everything. Don't just watch injustice happen. Be the Isaiah Martinez in your own situation. Stand up, speak out, make change. Because the world needs more people who judge character over clothing, worth over wealth, and dignity over appearance. If this story moved you, share it. If it challenged you, live it. If it inspired you, be it. The power to change things isn't reserved for CEOs and millionaires. It belongs to anyone brave enough to say, "This is wrong and I won't be silent anymore." What will you do with that power?